For rejecting my estranged mom when she came back just for my $900,000 inheritance? My name is Natalie, and during the first 8 years of my life, I watched my parents' marriage fall apart through one heated argument after another. My dad always found something wrong with everything my mom did, that the food had too much salt, that the clothes were not folded right, that she had spent too much at the supermarket, that she was teaching me bad habits. No matter what she did, it was never enough for him. "You cannot even run a house properly," he would say to her, his face flushed with frustration. I would hide in my room every time the arguments started. I covered my ears with my hands, but their voices always managed to carry through the walls. After every disagreement, I would hear my mom crying in the bathroom, trying to hide her sobs with the sound of the running faucet. That pattern continued year after year. There were calmer days than others, yes, but the tension never fully left. It lived inside the house, as if the air itself was waiting for the next outburst. My dad was a corporate lawyer at a major firm downtown, and brought the same demanding style home that he used to handle cases at the office. My mom had been a homemaker since I was born. Before that she had been a teacher, and that was a choice my dad never forgave her for. "I provide for this family," he would repeat every time they argued. "The least you can do is run the house properly." My 8th birthday was strangely quiet. My dad even smiled a couple of times, and my mom baked me a chocolate cake, my favorite. Now, when I think about it, I believe she had already made a decision by then. The next morning she disappeared. She left no message, gave no explanation, and did not say goodbye to me. There were only empty drawers and a half-open closet. My dad went into a panic. He called everyone, pulled every string he had, hired a private investigator, but my mom had vanished. When the divorce proceedings started, she did not appear. The judge granted my dad full custody, and her absence was recorded as abandonment. I remember sitting in that courtroom wearing the blue dress my mom had bought me barely a month earlier. I kept looking toward the door, thinking that at any moment she was going to walk in, say there had been a mistake, that none of this was real. But it never happened. My dad squeezed my hand so hard on the way out of the courthouse that it hurt. "She is a traitor," he said through his teeth. "We do not need her. We never needed her. But I did need her. I needed my mom to shield me from my dad's short temper, to braid my hair in the mornings, to tell me everything was going to be fine. Instead, I was left alone with a man who no longer had anyone else to direct his frustration toward except me. That was when he decided to hire a nanny. "I cannot work and also keep an eye on a child," he announced one night as if it were a simple business matter. "We need help." That is how Stephanie arrived. She was young, pretty, and at first seemed perfect. She was 26 years old. She had studied early childhood education and made the best chocolate chip cookies I had ever tasted in my life. When she started working at the house, I thought maybe things would finally improve. At first I did not understand what was happening. My dad and Stephanie would exchange odd little smiles when they thought I was not looking. Sometimes I would walk into the kitchen or the living room, and they would both go completely silent as if I had interrupted something private. Stephanie started staying later and later after my dad got back from the firm. They would sit in the kitchen talking in low voices for hours. One October night, about 6 months after Stephanie started working with us, my dad called me to his home office. She was standing there next to the desk with a huge smile. "Natalie," he said, and for the first time since my mom left, he genuinely looked happy. "I have something important to tell you. Stephanie and I are getting married." I felt relief, truly. Stephanie had been good to me. She helped me with my homework, made my favorite pasta dishes, and never raised her voice at me like my dad did. When I had nightmares, she would sit by my side and tell me stories until I fell back asleep. I thought maybe this was our chance to be a real family. "That is great," I said. And I meant it. Stephanie hugged me. She smelled like vanilla and flowers. "We are going to be very happy together," she promised me. "You will see." The wedding was small but elegant. I was the flower girl and wore a pink dress Stephanie helped me pick out. She looked beautiful in white, and my dad did not stop smiling the entire ceremony. That was the last day I saw the Stephanie I thought I knew. Everything started little by little. The day after they got back from their honeymoon, I left my backpack in the living room like I always did. Stephanie walked in, saw it, and her face hardened in a way I had never seen before. Pick that up right now, she said with a coldness that stopped me in my tracks. This house is not a mess. I froze. Stephanie had never spoken to me like that. But that was just the beginning. Suddenly everything I did was wrong. The bed was not made right. I made too much noise when walking. I did not say please or thank you enough times. One day, confused and hurt by the sudden change, I gathered my courage and asked her directly, "Why are you so different now? You used to be very nice to me." Stephanie let out a dry chuckle. It was not the warm laugh I remembered. It was a laugh without warmth. "Oh, Natalie," she said, looking at her freshly manicured nails. "Before I was the employee. Now I am the lady of this house and you have to learn your place. When I tell you something, you do it with no questions asked." That afternoon I ran to my dad's home office in tears. I told him everything. I thought he was going to defend me. I thought he was going to set a clear boundary. Instead, his face turned that familiar shade of red I knew so well from his arguments with my mom. "You are exactly like your mother," he snapped at me, slamming his hand on the desk. "Always complaining, always causing problems. So understand one thing. If I ever hear you talk badly about Stephanie to anyone, things will go very badly for you. Do you hear me?" I nodded with my whole body shaking and ran to my room. That night I cried until my pillow was soaked. I wished with all my might my mom would come back and take me away from there. Life turned into a daily challenge of new rules. Stephanie used her new role like a strict authority. Every day she found another way to make things harder for me. First she banned the pop music I liked because she said it was tacky. Then she took the small television from my room claiming it distracted me from my studies, even though I got straight A's. She started controlling the clothes I wore. She threw away my favorite jeans because, according to her, they looked too casual. She changed my colorful quilt for plain white sheets because she said my room had to match the aesthetic of the house. She even scheduled my shower times, no more than 10 minutes and only at the time she approved. The only light in all of that was my grandmother Eleanor, my mom's mother. She came to see me every few weeks. She always brought me something special. A book, clothes, sometimes a charm or small earrings that Stephanie could not take from me because they were family heirlooms. "How are you, my dear?" she would ask me quietly, searching for the truth in my face. I could feel my dad's and Stephanie's stares on me. I remembered my dad's warning and forced a smile. "Good, Grandma, everything is good." That went on for almost 5 years. I learned to live under Stephanie's rules, to speak little, to stay out of the way, to become almost invisible. Later I understood that my grandmother had suspected something was wrong for a while. But as long as I kept denying it and she had no clear proof, confronting my dad directly carried the risk of having the door shut on her forever. That is why she kept visiting me, observing and waiting for the moment they could no longer deny it. Then when I was 13, Stephanie announced she was pregnant. My dad was thrilled. He immediately had the guest room transformed into a nursery, even before she started showing. Stephanie spent hours looking at newborn clothes and planning the perfect space for her princess. When Grace was born, it was as if I ceased to exist. My dad took pictures of everything: her first smile, the first time she tried to roll over, the first time she grabbed a rattle. Stephanie constantly posted updates on social media about her perfect little angel. But 6 months later, amid that supposed family happiness, Stephanie started complaining. "I am exhausted," she told my dad with a weary tone. "The baby needs attention all the time. I cannot even go to the salon in peace anymore." My dad, always so practical at solving things to his advantage, suggested hiring someone. "There must be a lot of students looking for part-time jobs," he said one night during dinner. "We can interview a few." I saw Stephanie's expression change when she heard the word students. She gripped her fork and just looking at her was enough to understand what she was thinking. After all, she had entered the house exactly like that, as a young nanny who ended up becoming the wife. The irony was not lost on me even at 13. "Of course not," she cut him off sharply. "We do not need to bring anyone in. We have someone right here who can take care of Grace." My dad followed the direction of her gaze and looked at me. "You are right," he said slowly. "Natalie can help with her sister. It will be good for her to learn responsibility." What started as helping out a little quickly turned into a daily obligation, without anyone asking me if I could or wanted to. Every day after school, Stephanie was already waiting by the door with Grace in her arms. As soon as I walked in, she would hand her to me. She already ate, but she needs to be changed in a bit, she would tell me while grabbing her designer bag. I have an appointment at the salon. Other times she said she was getting coffee with friends or had a lunch or an errand to run. There was always an excuse. I loved Grace very much. She was just an innocent baby caught in the middle of all that. But I was 14. I was trying to maintain good grades, and at the same time they had turned me into the one in charge of her almost every afternoon. Instead of doing algebra homework, I warmed bottles and made baby food. Instead of making progress on history papers, I changed diapers and rocked a baby to sleep. Stephanie would show up around 6:30, right before my dad got home from the firm after driving through heavy afternoon traffic. He almost always came in when it was already dark. "I am exhausted from doing so much around the house," she would say as soon as she saw him walk in. And there I was, still in my school uniform, with Grace on my hip and my homework untouched. One day at school I could not take it anymore. During recess I broke down and told my friend Emily everything. I talked to her about how they expected me to take care of Grace every day, that I did not have enough time to study anymore, that Stephanie pretended to be a dedicated mom when in reality she left the burden to me. Emily listened in silence and then told me something that changed everything. "You need to talk to the school counselor about this," she said. "It is not normal and it is not your job to solve it alone." I was already so tired that I stopped thinking about the consequences. That same day after classes, the counselor asked me to stay for a moment. She spoke to me calmly. She asked how long this had been happening, how many hours they left me alone with the baby, if there were other adults in the house, if my dad knew. I answered with a tight throat, but I answered everything. 2 days later, I was at home with Grace trying to feed her, and at the same time read an English assignment when there was a knock at the door. It was staff from the Department of Children and Family Services. They asked for Stephanie. I told the truth. She was at her weekly salon appointment. They came in, looked around the house, took notes, asked me questions about my routine, about how much time I was left alone with the baby, about my school hours. Then they called my dad. He arrived 20 minutes later with a calm face. But I knew that calm was purely an act. I had seen that expression before his worst arguments with my mom. The staff explained that they could not continue leaving a 14-year-old minor in charge of a baby for several hours. They gave them a warning and left their contact information to follow up. As soon as the van left, my dad became furious. "You are a disloyal snake," he yelled at me with a face purple from anger. "Just like your mother, always trying to destroy this family. Do you have any idea what you just did?" "I did not mean to," I started to say, but he shut me up immediately. "Be quiet. You are exactly like her, a traitor. You betrayed this family. You betrayed Stephanie's trust." Stephanie arrived shortly after with freshly styled hair and flawless nails. My dad told her everything. The shocking part was that not a single bit of the anger fell on her. On the contrary, she burst into tears. She said I wanted to ruin her life, that I was jealous of her relationship with Grace, that I was ungrateful after everything they had done for me. "Go to your room," my dad roared. "You have no phone, no computer, and you are not leaving this house except to go to school for a month. And if you ever do something like this again, you will regret it." He did not need to say more. A week after the agency incident, I waited until my dad and Stephanie fell asleep. I quietly went downstairs with my heart pounding in my chest, and took from a drawer the cell phone they had forgotten to take from me. My hands were shaking when I dialed my grandmother Eleanor's number. "Grandma," I whispered as soon as she answered. "I need help." My voice broke as I told her everything, being forced to care for Grace, my neglected studies, my dad's anger, the punishment. She listened to me in silence, letting out an anguished sigh every now and then. "I will be there tomorrow morning," she said firmly. "Pack a bag, my dear, just in case." And she kept her word. At 9 o'clock sharp the next morning, my grandmother arrived at the house. But she was not the usual diplomatic woman. She came in like a force of determination. Her hair was slightly undone, her eyes full of resolve, and a strength that could be felt throughout the living room. "I have seen enough," she said without even saying hello. "I know what is going on. I know how you turned my granddaughter into someone who takes care of the household for you without getting anything in return. I know you are neglecting her education. I know you punish her for telling the truth, and yes, I have been gathering evidence for a while because if you shut this door on me, you would also take my granddaughter away. My dad tried to interrupt her, but she did not let him. Natalie is coming to live with me. Either we settle this nicely or a judge reviews it when he sees everything I have already documented. You cannot just take her like that, my dad managed to say. It was then that I saw something I had never fully understood about Stephanie. She did not argue when the situation did not benefit her. She adjusted her approach. She touched my dad's arm gently. Maybe it is for the best, she said quietly. That way we can focus on Grace and Natalie will have more opportunities with Mrs. Eleanor. I clearly saw how something shifted inside my dad upon hearing that. In less than an hour, I left with my grandmother that same day. Her house in Hancock Park felt like another world. It was an old mansion with a garden, tall windows, a stone staircase and more rooms than I could count. My bedroom was bigger than the entire living room at my dad's house. It had a large window overlooking the rose garden and an armchair by the window, where I spent whole hours breathing in peace. This is your home now, my grandmother told me as she helped me unpack my bag. And you are going to arrange it however you want. She transferred me to a private school in Los Angeles. Since we lived in Hancock Park, the morning commute was manageable even when there was traffic, but even so every day felt lighter than returning to the life I had left behind. There, for the first time in years, I made real friends. No one knew my history, no one saw me as the inconvenient stepdaughter, nor as the one who babysat someone else's child for free, nor as the girl from a troubled home. There I could just be Natalie. The day I turned 16, my grandmother called me to her office. She was sitting behind her antique desk, more serious than usual. I opened a college fund for you, she told me. It is enough for you to study wherever you want, USC, any top school you decide. That night I stayed up late studying for a biology test, and for the first time in my life I was not studying to escape my reality. I was studying to build my future. I found the photo album by accident a month after that conversation. I was helping my grandmother reorganize her office when I saw a leather album tucked behind some folders with documents. I opened it and the first thing I found was my mom's face, younger, happier, in pictures I had never seen. I felt my heart race as I turned the pages. There she was as a teenager, then at her graduation, then at what looked like college. She looked so much like me. The same dark hair, the same smile, even the same way of tilting her head when posing. Grandma, I called her with a trembling voice. Look what I found. My grandmother walked into the office, saw the album and froze. We should look for her, I said before I could stop myself. Now that I live with you, my dad cannot stop me from seeing her anymore. Maybe she is not afraid of him anymore. Maybe she does want to come back. Natalie, she interrupted me with a softness that made my stomach drop. There is something you need to know. She went to her desk, opened the laptop and started searching through folders. I should have told you earlier, but I wanted to protect you. Protect me from what? She took a deep breath. The day after your mom left, I wrote to her. I knew where she was because she contacted me briefly before disappearing. I told her she had to come back for you. I told her she could not leave you with your father. I offered to help her with money, support both of you. Do whatever was necessary to keep you safe. I was already shaking. And what did she answer? Instead of replying, she turned the computer toward me. The email was from a day after my mom had left. It was short, too short. Mom, do not look for me regarding Natalie again. I do not want her. I never wanted her. She was a chain keeping me tied to that house and that life. I do not care what happens to her. She is David's problem now, Linda. The words blurred from my tears. I read it once, then again, then one more time, as if insisting would change the meaning. But it did not change. Still said the same thing. Cold, cruel, final. I saved it, my grandmother said softly. I thought one day you would need to know the truth. I closed the album slowly. My mom's smiling face in those pictures suddenly felt like a mockery. For years I had imagined she had been forced out by my dad's behavior, that maybe she was afraid to come near, that perhaps she watched me from a distance and loved me in secret, But the truth was much simpler and much more brutal. She never wanted me. The following years were the happiest of my life. I got into the University of Southern California with a perfect GPA. During the week I lived immersed in classes, projects, and new friends. On vacations and long weekends I went back to my grandmother's house in Hancock Park. "Tell me everything," she would say while we drank tea in the garden. And I would tell her about my classes, my friendships, what I dreamed of doing when I finished my degree, how different it felt to live. Finally, a life of my own. It was in the last year of my degree when my grandmother got sick. It all started as a cough that seemed unimportant. Then it became something more serious. The tests confirmed stage 4 lung cancer. It had already spread. The doctors were honest. They gave her about 6 months. She fought with a dignity that still moves me today. She never lost her composure, never lost the refined humor that characterized her. But the doctors were right. I spent that summer by her side, watching her slowly fade away. She died on a Tuesday morning in August, holding my hand and telling me she was proud of me. Her funeral was packed. My grandmother Eleanor was a very well-known, highly respected woman. People came from all over to say goodbye: charity board friends, acquaintances of years, people from the business world, distant relatives I barely recognized. But there were 3 absences that did not go unnoticed. My mother, my father, and Stephanie. It is not that I expected to see them there, but their absence finally confirmed to me how completely out of my life they had stayed. 2 weeks after the funeral, Mr. Harrington, my grandmother's estate attorney, called me. He asked me to go to his office to review the provisions of the will. When I arrived, I saw someone I had not seen in over a decade. My mom was with a man who looked about 5 years younger than her, wearing an expensive suit, but poorly fitted, as if he wanted to appear as more than he really was. She barely looked at me when I walked in. I only noticed she checked her watch constantly, rushing the attorney with her gaze to begin. The meeting was brief but devastating for her. My grandmother had left me the house in Hancock Park, all her jewelry, and most of her investments. Just the liquid part of the estate was around $900,000. To my mom she left $150,000 and nothing more. "That cannot be right," my mom blurted out, finally losing her composure. Her makeup ran with her tears. She said she was her daughter, that she had debts, that she needed more. The man with her shifted uncomfortably in his chair while she cried, begged, and repeated that a larger share belonged to her, that it was not fair, that she needed help. I stood up without saying a single word and left. Her cries could still be heard down the hallway. The next morning I was in my grandmother's office, which was now my office, going through boxes with old papers and documents. Around noon the doorbell rang. I opened the door and there was my mom. She was wearing a different designer outfit than the day before, but the same desperate expression. She walked in without waiting for an invitation. Her eyes scanned the foyer with a familiarity that disgusted me. "It is the same," she muttered. "Exactly as I remember it. I grew up here, you know. I made that dent in the marble staircase when I was 7 and dropped my skates. What are you doing here?" I asked her, closing the door without moving from my spot. "I just came to talk." She ran her hand along the banister. "I miss this house. I miss you. We have a lot of catching up to do, do you not think? Mother and daughter together at last." I almost laughed at the absurdity. "It took you 12 years to miss me." "I know I made mistakes," she said with a pleading voice. "I was young. I was trapped in a difficult marriage with your father. I was not thinking clearly." She walked into the living room and sat on the couch as if it still belonged to her. "The truth is, my love, I was also hoping we could help each other out. Right now I am going through a difficult financial situation, and this house is too big for just one person." "No," I told her with complete clarity. "You are not going to live here, not now, not ever." That was when her mask fell. "I am your mother, Natalie. You cannot leave me without support. I gave you life. And then you abandoned me," I answered without raising my voice. "You left me with a man you knew perfectly well what he was like. You never called, never wrote, never asked if I was okay." She blinked several times but quickly composed herself. "You do not understand how complicated relationships between adults are. I understood enough since I was 8. She stood up. "If you turn your back on me, I am going to make sure everyone knows what kind of cold, heartless daughter you are. I am going to tell everyone how you are leaving your own mother without a place to turn. I went to the office, grabbed the laptop and came back with it open. Go ahead, I told her. Tell them. I opened the email my grandmother had saved all those years ago. I do not want her, I never wanted her. She was a chain keeping me tied to that house and that life. I do not care what happens to her, she is David's problem now. I read it out loud slowly. Do you want me to also send this to all those people you care so much about impressing? Or do you prefer I post it on social media? All the color completely drained from her face. She grabbed her bag with tense hands. You are just like your father, she lashed out. Cruel and manipulative. No, I answered calmly. I am like my grandmother. I actually see people for who they are, and I do keep evidence. She stormed out of the house furious, slamming the door. That happened 6 months ago. Next month I graduate with honors with a degree in business administration and strategy. I already accepted an offer at a consulting firm in downtown Los Angeles, and in July I am moving back permanently to my grandmother's house, to my house. My dad tried to call me once, surely after finding out about the inheritance through my mom. I did not answer. Stephanie continues posting pictures of her perfect family with Grace on social media. I blocked her a long time ago. My mom managed to send some manipulative messages about forgiveness and family obligations before I also blocked her number. Some people say you cannot choose your family. I do not agree. My grandmother chose me when my own parents did not, and that is the legacy I truly intend to honor. Next month they are going to start remodeling the house. I want to update some things but without touching what made it special for her. Yesterday I found a letter my grandmother wrote me before she died. It was kept in a drawer in her desk. Remember this, it said. Your worth does not depend on those who left you behind, but on what you decide to build afterwards. You are stronger than you imagine, smarter than you believe, and more loved than you can see. She was right. The past is already behind me, and I am no longer going to let it dictate my future. If I understood anything after everything I lived through, it is that the abandonment of others does not define my worth and that family is not always the one you are dealt, but also the one that cares for you, believes you, and holds you up when you need it most. For a long time I thought that if I endured more, if I behaved better or if I made myself smaller, maybe someone would finally love me the way I needed. Today I know it was not my job to fix what others broke, nor to beg for love where there was only control, fear, or convenience. I also understood that setting boundaries does not make me cold, it makes me aware, and that keeping evidence, organizing my papers and calling things what they are can protect me more than I imagined. Because in real life, dignity, truth, and what a person can prove also matter. My grandmother taught me, without saying it all the time, that true affection is shown in actions, not in speeches. Comment. I really hope this story touched you the way it touched me. Your value doesn't depend on the people who couldn't see it. It's important to protect your peace by setting clear boundaries. True care is shown through consistent actions, not just words. Sometimes the bravest choice is to put yourself first. Healing starts when you release what was never yours to carry. I encourage you to surround yourself with people who genuinely lift you up. You have the strength to build a life that feels safe and peaceful. You deserve relationships rooted in respect and kindness. Keep choosing growth and honoring your own worth every single day. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.